Hey, sweetheart, you look a little lost. The library is about 5 miles that way. The voice was gravel over asphalt, thick with the kind of smoke that settled in the lungs and never left. Kay Beck didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. She sat on the cracked red vinyl of the bar stool, her posture perfectly upright but relaxed, her hands wrapped loosely around a glass of soda water with a lime wedge balancing precariously on the rim. The condensation on the glass was the only thing moving, sliding down in slow weeping trails to the coaster beneath. Kay took a slow breath, inhaling the scent of stale beer, lemon floor cleaner, and the overwhelming musk of the man standing too close to her right shoulder. She was wearing a royal blue top, the fabric soft and unassuming, draped over shoulders that looked slender in the dim amber lighting of the rusted sprocket. Her long blonde hair cascaded down her back, catching the flicker of the neon beer sign buzzing against the far wall. To the untrained eye, she looked like a college student who had taken a wrong turn on the way to a study group, or perhaps a suburban mom trying to recapture a fleeting moment of youth in a place she didn't understand. To the man looming over her, she looked like prey. He was massive, a mountain of leather and denim, with a beard that reached his chest. A patch on his vest declared him the sergeant-at-arms of the Iron Vipers, a local motorcycle club that treated this particular dive bar as their living room, boardroom, and interrogation chamber. "I'm not lost," Kay said. Her voice was soft, melodic, but it lacked the tremble of fear he was expecting. It was a flat fact, delivered with the indifference of someone reading a weather report. She turned her head slightly, her blue eyes meeting his dark, bloodshot gaze. "I'm just having a drink." The big biker, whose road name was Piston, chuckled. The sound rumbled deep in his chest. He looked back at his table where 4 other men sat, nursing dark beers and watching the interaction with predatory grins. Piston turned back to her, leaning his forearm on the bar, effectively boxing her in against the counter. "Soda water ain't a drink, darling," Piston said, leaning closer. "It's a waste of a bar stool. See, my boys and we've got a long ride ahead of us tomorrow. We like to stretch out, and this particular stool is where I like to put my helmet." Kay looked at the empty bar. There were a dozen other stools. There were 4 empty booths. The place was a graveyard on a Tuesday night, save for the Vipers and an old man in the corner nursing a whiskey. "There's plenty of room," Kay said.
The jukebox in the corner playing a low classic rock track seemed to fade into the background noise of the refrigerator humming. Piston froze, his hand inches from her arm. He smiled, but it was a jagged, ugly thing. "Oh, what? You gonna call your boyfriend? You gonna scream?" "I'm going to ask you politely to return to your table," Kay said. She set the glass down. "I've had a very long week. I am tired. I just want to finish my water and wait for my ride." "Oh, her ride," one of the bikers at the table called out. "Is Daddy coming to pick her up?" Laughter erupted from the table. Piston, emboldened by the audience, closed the gap. He pressed his chest against his shoulder, the smell of leather and unwashed body overpowering. "I think you should move now." Kay closed her eyes for a second. In the darkness behind her lid, she didn't see the sticky bar counter or the looming biker. She saw wire, a red wire, no thicker than a strand of spaghetti, buried inside a tangle of rusted metal and plastic casing in the baking heat of a Helmand Province marketplace. She felt the sweat trickling down her spine under 50 pounds of Kevlar, the sound of her own heart hammering in her ears, the absolute crystalline silence of the world waiting for her to make a mistake. She remembered the steady voice in her earpiece, the trust to the men forming a perimeter around her, the knowledge that if her hands shook even a millimeter, she and her brothers would be pink mist. She opened her eyes. The fear Piston wanted to see wasn't there. Instead, there was a void, a calm, chilling emptiness that usually only existed in the eyes of people who had seen the other side of mortality and decided to come back. "I'm not moving," she said. Piston's face reddened. His ego was on the line now. He couldn't let a 90-pound slip of a girl in a blue shirt disrespect him in front of his brothers. He reached out and grabbed her upper arm. His grip was hard, meant to bruise. "Listen here, you little—" Kay didn't strike him. She didn't throw a punch or break his nose. She simply moved. It was a shrug, a roll of the shoulder, combined with a subtle twist of her torso that broke his grip instantly, using the mechanics of his own thumb against him. It was efficient, minimal, and confusingly fast. Piston stumbled back a half step, looking at his hand as if it had betrayed him. I said, don't touch me, Kay repeated. Her voice hadn't raised a decibel. At the corner table, the old man watching, nursing his whiskey, froze. He had been watching the scene with a mixture of pity and anxiety, contemplating calling the cops, though he knew the cops took 20 minutes to get out this far. But when he saw that move, the economy of motion, the rotational brake, he sat up straighter. He squinted through the gloom. He looked at the woman's wrist. As her sleeve had ridden up during the brief scuffle, he caught a flash of silver, a bracelet, not jewelry. It was a sound of profound disappointment. "I can't do that." "Make her," Piston ordered. The biker on the right lunged. It was a clumsy grab, fueled by alcohol and overconfidence. Kay dropped off the stool, slipping under his arm. She didn't hit him, she guided him. A palm to the back of his elbow, a subtle trip with her foot, and the biker crashed face first into the bar counter with a sickening thud. She stepped back into the open space of the floor, putting the bar between her and the wall. Hands open, palms out. "Stay back." The room went silent again, save for the groan of the man peeling his face off the mahogany. Piston stared at his friend, then at Kay. His face went purple. "Get her." They rushed her. It was a chaotic brawl, or it would have been if Kay had been anyone else. But Kay Beck wasn't just anyone. She was a Senior Chief Petty Officer in the United States Navy. She was a Master EOD technician. She had cleared roads in Fallujah, dismantled IEDs in the Arandab River Valley while taking fire, and served as the primary explosive expert attached to SEAL Team 4 for 3 consecutive deployments. She had walked the long walk alone to defuse bombs designed to kill tanks. Drunk bikers were not a tactical problem. They were a geometry equation. She ducked a swinging fist, weaving inside the guard of the second attacker. She drove a palm into his solar plexus, doubling him over, then shoved him backward into Piston. She used the environment, keeping the pool table to her left to funnel them, ensuring they couldn't surround her. But there were too many of them, and she was holding back. She knew that if she truly unleashed, if she used the lethal strike she had drilled for 15 years, she would kill one of them. And killing a civilian in a bar fight was a career ender, regardless of self-defense. She had to survive without maiming them, which was infinitely harder than just neutralizing the threat. A heavy boot caught her in the thigh, sending a jolt of pain up her leg. She stumbled, and Piston seized the opportunity. He grabbed her hair, yanking her head back. "Gotcha now, you little witch!" he screamed. Kay gritted her teeth, grabbing his wrist with both hands to relieve the tension on her scalp. She slammed her heel down onto his instep hard. He howled but didn't let go. He swung his other fist, a haymaker aimed at her face. She blocked it with her forearm, but the force sent her Standing in the frame was a silhouette that blocked out the floodlights. He was not as big as Piston in terms of fat and beer muscle, but he was built like a coiled spring. He wore plain clothes, cargo pants, a tight gray t-shirt, and a baseball cap pulled low. But the way he stood, feet shoulder-width apart, hands loose but ready, screamed violence. Behind him, more shapes filled the doorway, men and women, some in riding gear, some in gym clothes, but all moving with a terrifying unity. The man in the front stepped into the light. He had a scar running through his eyebrow and eyes that looked like flint. He scanned the room in a single heartbeat, the bartender hiding, the old man in the corner, the overturned stools, and finally the 3 men pinning the blonde woman against the jukebox. His eyes locked onto Piston's raised hand. "I'd put that hand down if you want to keep it," the newcomer said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a weight that made the air in the room feel heavy. Piston blinked, trying to process the interruption. "This is private club business. Get lost." The newcomer stepped forward. Then another man stepped in behind him. Then another. Within seconds, 12 people had filed into the small bar.
They fanned out instantly, securing the exits, checking the corners, moving with a fluid professionalism that made the bikers look like clumsy children. "I don't care about your club," the leader said, walking steadily toward the jukebox. "I care about the senior chief you've got your hands on." Piston looked at Kay. "Senior what?" "Let her go," the leader said. He was 10 feet away now. "Last warning." "Or what?" Piston challenged, though his voice wavered. "There's 5 of us." "And there's 12 of us," a woman's voice came from the group. She stepped forward wearing a flight suit with the top half tied around her waist. "And we're bored." Piston looked at his men. They were nervous. These newcomers didn't look like bikers. They looked like sharks. "Let her go," Piston muttered to his guys. The men released Kay's arms. She slumped slightly, shaking out her shoulders, then stood tall, smoothing the front of her royal blue top. She took a breath, composing herself, and looked at the man who had walked in first. "Took you long enough, Master Chief," Kay said, her voice dry. The leader, Master Chief Hutch Hutchinson, a SEAL team leader who had trusted Kay with his life on more operations than he could count, cracked a small smile. "Traffic on Route 9 was a nightmare, Kay. You okay?" "I had have handled," she said, brushing a stray hair from her face. "I know you did," Hutch replied, "but we were in the neighborhood." Miller called. He nodded toward the old man in the corner, who raised his glass in a silent toast. Piston, realizing his dominance was evaporating, tried to salvage the situation. "Look, she started it. She was disrespecting the Vipers. We run this town." Hutch turned his head slowly to look at Piston. The amusement was gone. "You run this town, but—"
"You see these people?" She gestured to the room, to the SEALs, the pilots, the support crew who had dropped everything at the base the moment the call came in. "We hold ourselves to a standard. We protect those who can't protect themselves. You use your size to intimidate people. You use fear." She reached out and picked up her spilled purse from the floor. She dusted it off. "That's not strength," she said, her voice cutting like a razor. "That's cowardice dressed up in leather." Piston looked at the circle of operators. He saw the grim faces of men and women who had hunted terrorists in the darkest corners of the earth. He realized with a sinking horror that he had picked a fight with the pointy end of the spear. "We're leaving," Piston mumbled. "Come on, boys." "Not yet," Hutch said, stepping in Piston's path. He didn't touch him. He just occupied the space. "You broke the jukebox and you spilled the lady's drink." Piston fumbled for his wallet. His hands were shaking. He pulled out a wad of cash, hundreds of dollars, and threw it on the bar. "There, that covers it. We're going." "Go," Hutch said. The Vipers scrambled for the door, tripping over themselves to get away from the silent, staring wall of military personnel. Piston was the last one out. He paused at the door, looking back at Kay. She hadn't turned to watch him leave. She was thanking the bartender. The roar of the motorcycles outside faded into the distance, much faster and more erratic than when they had arrived. The tension in the room broke. The SEALs relaxed, shoulders dropping, smiles appearing. "You really can't go anywhere without starting a riot, can you, Beck?" The woman in the flight suit teased, walking over to give Kay a side hug. "I was drinking water," Kay protested, finally letting a smile touch her lips. "Sparkling water with a lime." Hutch walked over to the bar. He picked up the wad of cash Piston had left. He counted it, then tossed it to Al, the bartender, for the damages and a round for the house. "Whatever the lady wants." Al looked at the money, then at Kay. "I think the lady's drink is on the house for the rest of her life." Kay sat back down on the stool. Her legs were trembling slightly now, the adrenaline dump hitting her. It wasn't fear, it was just biology. She looked at her hands. For a second, the dive bar faded again. She was back in the sand. The memory wasn't a bad—
"Let's get a table. Beaks by in the second round, since she had all the fun." Laughter filled the room. The jukebox miraculously flickered back to life, skipping past the broken track to play something upbeat. Kay took a deep breath. She looked at the royal blue fabric of her sleeve, smoothed it out, and picked up a fresh glass of water Al placed in front of her. "Thanks, Hutch," she whispered. "Anytime, Senior," he replied. "Anytime." Later that night, as the team was leaving,
Kay stopped by the corner table. Miller, the old veteran, was still there. He nodded to her. "Good to see the brotherhood is still alive," Miller grunted. "Sisterhood, too," Kay corrected gently. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a coin. It was heavy bronze, stamped with the crab of the EOD and the trident of the SEAL teams, a unit coin from a deployment that didn't officially exist. She set it on the table next to his whiskey. "Thanks for the call," she said. Miller looked at the coin, his eyes widening. He looked up to thank her, but she was already walking out the door, flanked by giants, disappearing into the night where she belonged. The Vipers never came back to the Rusty Anchor, and the story of the quiet blonde woman who commanded a legion of SEALs became a legend in the county, a warning whispered to anyone who thought they could judge a book by its cover or a warrior by her shirt. 2 weeks later, at the base commissary, Kay was pushing a cart in the produce section. She turned the aisle and nearly collided with a man in a neck brace and a cast on his wrist. It was the biker who had tried to grab her first. He froze,